Maximus spits blood onto the dried earth of the Colosseum. He locks eyes with the man standing across from him. His opponent's arm oozes red where Maximus's blade met flesh. A wry smile creeps across Maximus's face as he sizes up his opponent, Alexios. They both know the truth. Only one will leave this arena alive. Emperor Commodus watches from his throne, impatient for bloodshed, ready to be entertained at any cost, even if it means death. Maximus twirls his gladius by the hilt, then bursts toward his adversary. But Alexios is prepared, charging straight at him, their blades meeting in the center of the arena. The impact is felt through the roaring crowd as the blades clash, sending sparks flying. The crowd's cheers are deafening as one gladiator's blade plunges into the other's midsection. The final moments are here. Death is close. Okay, that's not really how the fight went down. Hollywood lied to you? Today we're digging into the truth behind the myth, revealing what real gladiator battles were actually like. And it's even more surprising than Hollywood would have you believe. Alexio squints up at the cloudless sky above Corinth. Sweat stings his eyes, trickling down as he watches the lead gladiator, the Doctore, yell at the trainees. The Doctore's disappointment with the trainees' techniques is obvious, and their punishment will be brutal. Alexios feels the pressure mounting. Today, he and the other men of his section in the Ludus are assigned to the role of Thracians in the arena. That means mastering the Sika, the wickedly curved short sword. With only a small shield for protection, every mistake could be deadly. When he signed up to be a gladiator, Alexios dreamed of becoming a Samnites, as they were the most heavily armored gladiators. But the gods did not favor him. Instead, he faces a fight for survival, armed with little more than courage and skill. Unlike some of the other men in the training camp, Alexios had willingly volunteered to become a gladiator. His family was not rich by any means, and not poor either. Unfortunately, he was the youngest of 7 brothers, which meant that any land the family owned would never find its way to him. He knew that by joining the ranks of the Ludus, where gladiators were trained, he would become a slave to a rich master. But there was also the possibility of wealth and glory. He had always been good with a sword, and this was the only path for the son of a humble farmer to become infamous in the Roman Empire. "Again!" screams the Doctore as he cracks his whip. Alexios and the other gladiators take up their positions and drill until they can barely stand. In the Londinium amphitheater, Maximus slips in the cold mud as rain falls from the heavens. He finds himself sprawled in a puddle of diluted blood. Thoughts of his past flash before him. The brutal battles against the Roman legions invading his homeland at the top of the known world. The place where his friends, his wife, and his children had all been slain under the Roman banner. But fate did not offer him the warrior's death that he longed for. Instead, he was captured, sold into slavery, and bought by a wealthy Roman elite who saw him as little more than entertainment. With this new life, he was given a Roman name, stripping him of the one last connection to his previous life. Maximus gasps as a fierce kick slams into his side, delivered by a gladiator with the role of retiarius. The man wears no helmet or armor. Instead, he carries a net in one hand and a trident in the other. Retiarius circles him, waiting to strike while Maximus struggles to get up on the slippery ground. He's managed to dodge his opponent's net several times, but the rain-soaked ground betrays him. One misstep and now he's down, hearing the crowd chanting for the Retiarius to kill him. As a Murmillo, Maximus is armed only with a short sword and padding on one arm and one leg. He began the fight with a sturdy shield, but in the chaos of battle it slipped from his grasp, leaving him exposed. Now he faces his opponent, one hand gripping his sword, the other clutching mud. Maximus looks up at his adversary. Hate fills his heart. The man who is getting ready to stab him with a trident isn't like him. He volunteered for this life. In fact, the man came from a wealthy family, and he had been well trained before ever stepping foot in a Ludus. Maximus despises any man who would choose this brutal lifestyle. At the last possible second, Maximus rolls aside, feeling the sharp rush of air as the trident plunges into the mud where he laid moments before. The Retiarius struggles to free his weapon. Seizing his chance, Maximus rises to his feet in one fluid motion, his Sika raised above his head. With every ounce of strength, he swings down, slicing clean through the Retiarius' arm, just as his opponent yanks at the trapped trident. The Retiarius collapses to the ground, a scream tearing from his lips as his severed arm remains clenched around the trident, still embedded in the mud. The crowd erupts, caught between the horror and bloodlust. The wealthy houses who funded this game are furious. Retiarius was one of their best warriors, and now he will never fight again. But the order is given to spare the man's life. He can still make a good Doctore to train the other gladiators. Maximus strides towards the exit, leaving Retiarius behind as the crowd's roar swells like thunder. Their voices echo around him, but he is focused on what's ahead. He has decided he will continue to fight, he will win his freedom, and then he will make all of Rome pay for what they did to his homeland. Alexio looks into the arena from a crack between the wall and the door of the holding area. He has never seen two gladiators fight with such ferocity. The nimbleness with which they move is astonishing, and the brutality is on par with the best warriors in the empire. One of the gladiators sidesteps and then slashes their sword across the back of his opponent, who collapses onto the dust and does not get back up. The victor removes their helmet. Underneath is long flowing blonde hair and gentle cheeks. Female gladiators are not as common as their male counterparts, but they aren't all that rare either. Alexio thinks he's in love. This is his first time seeing female gladiators in the arena, but it'll not be his last. When becoming a gladiator, Alexio was sure that death would surround him. Yet, as the games conclude in the city of Histonium, a realization dawns on him. Many of his fellow gladiators are being spared. The crowd may clamor for blood and death, but gladiators are the prized property of their masters. To them, each gladiator represents a costly investment. After all, a dead gladiator is a worthless one. Maximus has fought many battles and conquered arenas across the Roman Empire over the past several months. Today, he fights in Verona. Word of his victories and his ferocity have spread far and wide. Graffiti bearing his name has been plastered on the walls around the city. Although he is still a slave, his notoriety and continued victories bring him closer and closer to buying his freedom. This would only be a means to an end, though. He's heard rumors that the Emperor Commodus not only frequents the arena, but sometimes even fights in it. Maximus dreams that if he ever found himself in a gladiatorial match against the Roman Emperor, he would drive his short sword straight through his heart. He had found it funny that in his early matches there were rules that Summa Rudis enforced. These referees ensured that the games were carried out in accordance with the rules of the arena. This was nothing like the war against the Romans, where it was kill by any means necessary or be killed. The Summa Rudis yells at the gladiators in the arena to prepare themselves for the next round. Maximus checks his armor and twirls his sword. When the signal is given, he wastes no time. The crowd loves him. Word of his exploits has outpaced his own travels. The masses shout his name. He lunges at his adversary and then quickly dodges, catching the other gladiator off guard and sending him sprawling into the dirt. The crowd laughs and jeers. Maximus holds up his sword. The crowd chants as the opponent gets off the ground and tries to sneak up on Maximus, but the gladiator from the north is always aware of his surroundings. Maximus spins quickly and slams the hilt of his sword into the man's face. He's knocked out instantly. Maximus stands over his opponent and looks toward the patron of the games. The Roman gestures with his hand. Maximus nods and plunges the blade into the opposition. The crowd loses their minds with glee. Gladiators don't always fight to the death, but the elite know that sometimes a little blood must be shed in order to appease the masses. Alexio waits in his small, cramped cell. He didn't have much before becoming a gladiator, but at least he was free to wander the countryside. As a slave to his master, he is either training or in the arena or crammed in a cell. He has to constantly remind himself why he gave up his freedom for this. Alexio had been told that the master wanted to see him, and when the man appears, he has a large smile on his face. "Alexio," he bellows, "you have brought this ludus much notoriety." The master explains that people from Egypt to Rome have heard of his exploits. He may not be very big, but he is quick and cunning, and more importantly, he has yet to lose a match. Now his master informs Alexio that if he wins his match in Pompeii, the next games will be in Rome. Alexio has a shot at fighting in the Colosseum, and if he is victorious, his dreams of buying his freedom back and being showered with fame will become a reality. Maximus stands among his fellow gladiators as the lanista, the manager and trainer, announces the order of matches for the day in the Colosseum. Maximus's name is listed for the final fight, set against a Corinthian warrior renowned for his skill. But Maximus hardly hears the details. He doesn't care who he's fighting. He will win, and he will make his defiance known to Emperor Commodus, who will be watching from his seat of power. The crowd erupts into cheers as the first event of the day begins. A Venator strides confidently into the arena, raising his bow high to greet the spectators. He takes his place, eyes fixed on the massive iron gates across the sand. A low, ominous grinding sound fills the air as gears turn and one of the gates begins to rise. The Venator readies himself, every muscle tensed. Unlike gladiators who fight other men, his role is different, perhaps even deadlier. From behind the gate comes a blood-curdling roar. A lion held back by chains pulls its keepers into the arena. It lunges at the nearest man, slashing his chest with a brutal swipe of its claws. A scream of terror pierces the air as the lion sinks its razor-sharp teeth into his leg. dragging him down. Without a moment's hesitation, the Venator springs into action, running toward the beast. He draws an arrow in a fluid motion, never breaking stride. He stops just within range, steadying his aim, and then releases the drawstring. The arrow slices through the air and buries itself deep in the lion's shoulder, causing the beast to recoil with a roar. For several tense minutes, it's man versus beast. Finally, with one shot, the lion collapses, defeated. The crowd erupts in a mix of relief and awe as the Venator stands victorious, chest heaving. The Venatores are specialized hunters who open the arena games. After the lion, the bear makes its appearance and meets a quick end at the hand of several Venatores working together. The 80,000 people present in the Colosseum cheer with delight at the hunts happening down below them. Next, several men are led to the center of the arena. There is booing and hissing from the crowd. The men are bound and forced to their knees, each one a convicted criminal. The emperor gives the signal. The men are executed. After the executions, it's time for the main event. Several gladiatorial matches are carried out, but it isn't until well into the afternoon that the match everyone has been waiting for begins. For the last hour, Alexio has been securing his armor, while the men from his ludus adorn his helmet with ostrich feathers. On the other side of the arena, Maximus is putting on intricately decorated armor and a new helmet that's been taken from a conquered Germanic king. No expense has been spared for this particular spectacle. He has been dressed up before, but the outfit he'll adorn for the pleasure of the emperor and the people of Rome is a little excessive. Maximus supposes he could refuse to fight. This might get the attention of the emperor, and then he could quickly tell him to go to Orcus before he was killed in his insolence. He had even heard of an entire group of warriors from a conquered region to the east who strangled each other moments before their match in a final act of defiance. Maximus shakes the thought from his head. He will see this to the end, gain his freedom, and undermine the Roman emperor from within his own city. An announcement is made from above Maximus. It's time for his match. He walks toward the staircase that leads up to the arena. A trap door opens above him and he climbs the stairs, squinting as he steps into the blinding sunlight. The crowd cheers his name. He holds up his sword, pointing it directly at where Emperor Commodus sits. Alexio enters the arena to the sound of the crowds chanting someone else's name. But when the masses see him rise out of the underground chamber, many shift their screams to his name. It appears the people of Rome are divided on who they want to win this final match. Alexio reassures those gathered it will be him, as he raises both arms above his head, beckoning the crowd to yell louder. Alexio had originally thought that he would be required to recite a salute to his emperor. "Hail, Emperor, we who are about to die salute you." However, this salute was only used by prisoners when the Colosseum was flooded with miniature ships and used to carry out mock naval battles. Maximus and Alexio move toward each other in the center of the arena. The Summa Ludus gives the signal for the match to begin. Both gladiators pick up their pace. Alexio leaps into the air, bringing his sword down upon his adversary's shield. The two men exchange blow after blow until Alexios' blade enters Maximus' torso. He coughs up blood and stumbles backward. Alexio slowly walks toward his opponent. He glances at the emperor, who watches intently. In the moment that he looks away, Maximus rises to his feet, grabs Alexios' sword by the blade, pulling it downward with bloody hands. Maximus tilts his head back and slams his helmet into Alexios' exposed face, breaking his nose. The Corinthian falls backward as his vision blurs from the impact. He lies in the dirt, with Maximus standing over him with his blade to his throat. Maximus breathes heavily as he waits for the emperor to make the next move. The crowd cheers. Many want to see a famous gladiator put to death. Emperor Claudius rises from his chair. He signals Maximus to kill his adversary. Maximus pauses for a moment. The crowd goes silent. He looks down at the man lying on the ground. He will not shed the blood of this man. In an act of defiance, Maximus throws his sword to the ground and reaches out his hand. Alexios takes it, and Maximus pulls him to his feet. The gladiators walk toward the exit of the arena as the Roman masses scream their names. It's a common misconception that the gladiator matches ended in death. In reality, it was much more common for gladiators to be allowed to live when defeated. That being said, there were some matches where the goal was to be the last man standing, and in those circumstances, death was expected. Fallen gladiators would often appeal for mercy by dropping their weapons and raising a finger, although the patron of the games or the Roman emperor could decide if a gladiator lived or died. There is little to no evidence that they would signal a gladiator should be killed. Even though gladiators were slaves and owned by the masters of their ludus, they had die-hard followers. Romans would spend large sums of money on the sweat and grime scraped off a gladiator's body to be used for medicinal purposes. The beginning of the end for gladiators was when the Roman Empire adopted Christianity as its official religion. The slaughter of men for sport did not sit well with Christian ideals. It was in 404 CE that Emperor Honorius closed the last ludus. A monk from Asia Minor by the name of Telemachus jumped in between two gladiators, and the crowd stoned him to death for ruining their fun. This spurred Honorius to officially prohibit gladiatorial matches in the Roman Empire. Think you could have survived a day in the life of a gladiator? Drop a comment telling us how you would have fought for survival in the arena. Now watch what caused the Roman Empire to collapse, or check out actual reason why Spartan Empire went extinct.